guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all very much for coming to one of my favorite classes to teach. My name is Mary Pritchard, and we have a lot to cover tonight. I recognize some faces, and I also see a lot of new faces, which always makes me really happy, because that means that there is an endless supply of people that want to learn more. Pretty important topic that we're going to be talking about tonight. Preparing for the unexpected from an urban perspective. I also teach wilderness perspective, wilderness survival, map and compass navigational classes, things of that nature, which I will incorporate to some degree within this class tonight, but today we're really going to focus on what happens in an urban setting. And just want to preface that I love interaction from you guys. I think you all are going to get a lot more out of this class if you participate. So don't be shy, and I very well may just call on you anyway. All right? So first and foremost, coming from an urban perspective, thinking of types of disasters that may happen. What types of disasters could you think of? Give me my pen. Okay, so I'm going to break it up into categories. Man-made, natural, and technology are three very common types of things that is a reality that we may come in contact with. So when you're thinking of a man-made disaster, what could that be?
Terrorist attack.
Terrorist attack. Civil unrest. What may cause that civil unrest? Ignorance. Yeah, sometimes I say ignorance is bliss, but not always. All right, civil unrest, terrorist activity. Yeah, like what happened in Waco. How long ago was that? When in West, just next to Waco. So let's say maybe chemical, could be an explosion, could be a nuclear disaster in which our air is potentially contaminated, our water sources are potentially contaminated. How about just recently when the EPA was in Colorado trying to do something good, and they didn't have enough manpower, and as a result they had a major contaminant plume that came flowing down the Colorado River. Okay. Terrorist, civil unrest, chemical, man-made. Maybe there is a dam breach. That could be a little bit of natural and also man-made. You know, it's the natural weather situation that could potentially be over-stressing out this particular dam. When was it? 2004 maybe? You know, dates are always kind of irrelevant for me, but around that time when the Guadalupe Dam, I think it was, along with Guadalupe Canyon Dam, something like that, it breached, took out a whole area. Natural disasters. What could be a natural disaster? In my opinion, natural disasters are probably the most realistic scenario. Tornadoes. Earthquake. I'm just going to
Sinkhole?
a sinkhole.
Yes.
Okay. So, like a sinkhole happening.
water pipes, for example.
That's right. That's right. There's some classic examples of sinkholes where a sinkhole, have you know what a sinkhole is, everybody? And, you know, it's just a cavity that there's this thin little layer of earth and there's a huge cavity underneath and eventually it gives way. Houses have been known to drop into sinkholes. Cars, you know, right in the middle of a road. A sinkhole will just happen. Usually some they're triggered by earthquakes. And you were saying something as well? Fires. Yes. Floods. Hurricanes. Let's see. Maybe even just in general climate warming. You know, global warming, and how we handle the elevated heat, the elevated temperature, the droughts that are happening as a result. You guys are probably going to start to hear the term water drought migration, water refugees, because water is going to become a really big issue in the near future. Okay? And entire communities, entire cities almost may be completely redistributed. Down in Brazil, it's a perfect example. With the drought that they're experiencing right now, everyone had that huge major push to the cities when they all wanted to have work, and now it's so overstressed and the drought is so intense down there in Brazil that a lot of the people are fleeing the cities now, and they're going back home to the rural areas, thinking that there's a better situation for making a living, thinking that there's more water, more resources. Water refugees, keep your ears open for it. All right, technology. What may be some technological disasters that could happen? Sure. So we could have power grid collapse. Terrorist attack kind of goes in with that.
EMP.
EMP?
Yep.
For those that may not know EMP, what does that stand for?
Electromagnetic pulse.
Electromagnetic pulse. So like the pole shifting?
Actually, it'd be pulse from a nuclear explosion, and it'll fry anything in the transistor.
Okay. Right. How about, yes sir?
Cyber attack.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to bring that one up. I would say with all of these that we have, probably the natural disasters and probably the cyber attacks are going to be the more likely situations. Okay? Now, with those, that kind of, it affects everything. It affects our water supply, it affects our power, it affects our cell phones, our means of communication, it affects transportation, depending on where you are. If you're in a city where public transit is really huge, at some point we'll get there. You know, we will definitely get there. But that may all stop. How are you going to get from point A to point B? Everything is pretty much computerized nowadays. How are you going to be able to get by when all of that goes down? If it all goes down. It maybe just part of it goes down, which would be a saving grace. Okay? But the fact that you guys are here right now tells me that you're already thinking about these situations. And let's discuss some of the things that we can do, some things to think about. Okay? So we can go as in-depth as you guys want. It's a pretty basic format for what they had me to talk with you guys about. But I'm more than willing to share as much knowledge as I have, because I think it's really important that we learn more about all this. And I have my own stuff here that I have brought from home that we can go through. And then I also have some other things in here that I brought that are here from the store. Okay. And the other thing I'm just going to preface is that I have this PowerPoint that I have to move through, but I may not necessarily stick to it. Okay. So, expecting the unexpected. As it is with the wilderness situation, you guys, it's unavoidable. But what is avoidable is how we tackle that unexpected situation. How we plan, how we prepare, how we practice all of the techniques that you learn and the skill sets that you're going to get into your tool belt is going to make you more knowledgeable. It's going to eradicate some of that fear that you may have and those doubts and those questions. And then you yourself will become a resource for others around you. All right? There's a really cool program. It's called CERT, C-E-R-T, and it stands for Community Emergency Response Team. It is us learning the skills, working with other folks in your neighborhood. It may be neighborhood associations. It may be business folks, business owners. It may be search and rescue people. It may be some policemen that may not necessarily, they may live in your neighborhood, right? I guarantee you they have all that knowledge. But it's more of a community-based emergency response coalition, if you will. And if you go to websites like the Williamson County website or Cedar Park website or Georgetown's website, and you put in CERT, C-E-R-T, or emergency management, it's going to take you to that page, and it's going to tell you when the next classes are, when the meetings are. You can get a newsletter. The more informed you guys become, the better resource and the stronger you're going to be in those situations that you're preparing for. Okay? Out as well. I'm going to come right over here. Every once in a while, when you're spacing out on my voice, I want you to just kind of glance over here and start putting these into your memory. So this comes from one of my favorite guys, Cody Lundeen. He's, some people think he's kind of a crazy person, but he's really just tells it like it is from a wilderness and also an urban perspective. I have a couple books that I'm going to show you that he's written, and he just puts it in very easy layman terms of things to take into consideration and the steps on how to implement these different things that we're talking about and are going to talk about. And one of his favorite things is called the 7 Ps. Prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. I use this a lot in my classes, if you guys have sat in on my classes before, because I just think it's awesome. And then also, the more knowledge is less fear. Stop, with 2 A's on the end. Stop, think, observe, plan, act, and adapt. I would say adapt is probably the most important word, especially in an urban situation when it comes to a disastrous situation, all right? And then the 7 priorities of survival. PMA stands for positive mental attitude. Wilderness first aid, any kind of first aid, CPR, any of those skills that you can get under your belt. We offer a wilderness first aid class. It's the basic first aid class. It's a 2-day class, Saturday and Sunday. It goes from 9 until 6. It's very, it's with National Outdoor Leadership School, Knowles. They do an awesome job. And then if you wanted to ramp it up a notch, you can always do first responder, which is a 5-day commitment and a lot more money, but well worth it, all right? And then shelter is something to take into consideration: fire, signaling, water, and food. In both the wilderness and urban situation, when I ask people what their first concern is on what they need to take care of, food is usually the first thing people always throw out at me. and it should be your last concern. 3 weeks you can go without food. 3 days you can go without water. Your environment, how you're being exposed to the sunshine, how you're being exposed to the elements, be it cold, rain, you have even a shorter amount of time. So shelter is probably going to be your first thing that you want to make sure you can take care of. Because if you have a nice dry area from which to work and an enclosed area from which you can cook, you can heat, you can do a lot of things within that shelter. And then after that, start thinking about these other things. All right? So I have those over there for you guys to noodle through. All right, so some of the stressors. Let's say, you're thrown into a situation. There is, actually, before I even get into all of this, you have all of these, the different types of disasters. Something has happened. So now, what you need to decide, because you're under a lot of stress at this point, everything is gone completely kaplooey. Do you stay in place, or do you evacuate? That's probably going to be the first thing that you need to make your mind up on. And by staying in place and evacuating, that's what all of this stuff is. You have a game plan in play, ready to go for both situations. Okay? So if you are deciding to stay in place, what might be a situation that you're going to stay in place? A natural disaster. What if it's a flood or a fire? Then you're going to evacuate. You have to adapt. That's right. What may be another situation? A flood or a fire, a natural disaster, there certainly could be some that you stay in place.
Again, maybe cybersecurity. I mean, we're sort of dependent on technology, but we can survive without it. So,
Exactly.
I mean, the adaptation may be minimal.
Yeah. So a stay in place situation may be some type of cyber situation. Maybe some type of viral infection. You know, you don't necessarily, let's say it's like avian flu or Ebola, what the world was dealing with last year around this time frame. I may opt to just stay at home and not have it as least contact as possible with folks at that point in the ball game until everything calms down. Let's see, stay in place. Dun, 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 dun. All right, we'll leave it at those two. Evacuation, when might you evacuate? I'm just going to put flood and fire up there because those would be two good ones. Now, a flood, if the water is just rising and you can stay in place, it's probably better to stay in place. But if it's a situation like what Wimberley was experiencing, you may want to just get out of town. Or like what happened with Katrina, you may want to just get out of town. Okay? A fire, what happened in Bastrop, they had no choice. They had to get up and go pronto. All right? Other situations where you may want to evacuate. Civil unrest. Okay. Anything else? Earthquake. Yeah, an earthquake, depending on, how bad the situation is, it may be better to just stay in place, or you may have to get out. So maybe we'll put kind of, a tornado after the fact. Like let's just say the tornado completely comes through your house and then there's nothing left, at which point you kind of have to evacuate. Okay? All right, so when you decide to stay in place, what might be some things that would be handy to have? Let's say there is a viral outbreak. What might you want to have just stored ready to go?
Medication.
Medication? Okay. So, and medication could be even when you have to evacuate. I mean, that's just an excellent. If you guys have prescriptions,
She
masks.
suggests a mask to help
Yep.
just in case the environment's dirty.
So coming from my own garage, it probably has sawdust on it. I'm just going to pass this around, all right? There are different types of masks and then also plastic gloves. At the very least, you want the N95 respirator style. Okay? I'm going to pass these around so you can see it. Now, why did I include the gloves? Yeah, for handling the mask. So let's say you go out, things are starting to calm down a little bit. You've just hunkered down for a while. A couple days have passed, and you want to go outside, and you have your mask on. When you come home, you don't necessarily want to touch your mask with your hands. That's where the gloves come in, so that you can then put the gloves on and use the gloves to take the mask off. Okay? And then you just turn those inside out and they get chucked. All right, so meds, masks, gloves, food and water. First aid.
Extra bedding and extra clothes for people who might show up.
All right. Okay, so with folks that are showing up, let's say maybe your location is the go-to location. When you guys are, because there are two things I have to say about people showing up at the house. Let's say you are the location that you've come up with your plan and you have communicated your plan to everybody, and part of that is where are you going to go? If you're staying there and other people, are they going to come to you, or are you going to them? Or is there another location that you may potentially have in play that you're going to rendezvous and then decide what to do from there? And your house is that location where everyone's rendezvousing at that address. All right? That would be a good scenario. What if this class is like the what if, just what if everything. I just took a Williams first day class and they said, don't do the what if game, because then you're going to go down that path as a slippery slope. But we are in the world of what ifs right now, okay? So let's say someone comes to your house and you don't necessarily want them there. How are you going to handle that? Something to consider. We don't necessarily need to go into that, and I'm not going to go into a lot of all of that, but self-defense is definitely something to take into consideration. Something that you need to consider very heavily when you think about that, all right? It's something not to just think lightly on and joke about. But it is a potential. So when you guys go back home tonight and you are starting to think about all these different questions and you're starting to develop a plan, don't necessarily be real vocal about it. What other people don't know is probably the best thing that could happen for you. So if your house is a location, you do have people coming to your location, then only those folks that have been granted access, let's put it that way, are the ones that are coming in. All right? Okay. So other things, if you're staying at home, let's say, once again, coming back to that viral infection, you have your mask, you have your gloves. What happens if you need to quarantine? You know, like back in the day, in the 18 and 1900s, there was the flu. The flu, you know, you had to quarantine folks that had the flu. How are you going to quarantine people? What room are you going to use to quarantine somebody? Do you have an extra bedroom that has a bathroom next to it? For my house, I do. I have the master bed and bath, and then I have a guest bedroom with a guest bath, and conveniently it is away from the primary area of the house, which makes it really nice. So that person, if they are sick, they've got a convenient bed and also a bathroom. Spare plastic that you can drape over the walls, duct tape, two good things to have on hand, maybe extra string. What were you gonna? Oh, I heard something. So, does that make sense? Okay. If you're going to evacuate, what are some things that you need to think about? What may you want to bring with you? Let's say your car is working. Let's say your car has enough gas in it. Let's say you're not like me and push the car to the limit and run on empty all the time. Yeah. What things may you have with you?
Cash and important documents.
Important documents, cash. What if the currency isn't any good any longer? Something to barter with. You know, hopefully it won't be a situation where cash isn't rendered null and void, but it's something to, you know, to consider. So let's just say currency. What were some of the other things?
Documents.
Documents. I remember for the Katrina floods and the disaster there, there were a lot of people that lost all of their documents. And they had a lot of trouble after the fact when they were trying to claim insurance and they were trying to even prove who they were. In the world of identity theft, that paper document, it just is worth its weight in gold. I have a little file folder that is just really quickly accessible for me. It can just grab it and go if I need to. Maybe in that box itself, have it already in a folder. So all you have to do is open it. This is where you're going to be pretty stressed out. You're going to be panicking because you're moving really fast. And just grab that folder already in there. So all you have to do is open it, grab it.
You can copy it, you need to scan that, copy it, put it on flash drive, your flash drive in the state, when whatever things on the app, you have all that flash drive.
You can also get the small, like, briefcase style safes. You know, Walmart for $20 to $30. They're fireproof. They have a handle. They have a lock. That's where we keep all our stuff. We have two of them. We're ready to go. We put them on the shelf.
I think I remember reading a story about one of the Wimberley folks that had one of those, and they couldn't grab it in time, but they came back and it was still there, and that was the only thing left were their documents and some pictures and things like that. Yeah. Making copies of things is an excellent idea. The other thing to keep in mind, if you do make copies, make sure that you store them somewhere that, if you're out of town, isn't easily gotten to. You know, I was just talking about this with my brother. I was just recently out of town, and I was told, we were talking about safety deposit deposit box and things like that from the bank, and how it's maybe not always the best thing, because if something happens to you, you have to be the one that opens the safety deposit box. Each bank may be a little different, and they may have changed since I last looked into that. But I was telling him that I would just have my little folder of important documents, and I had a little note on there in case anything happens to Mary, and Gunnar, then grab this, so I have, living will and all this kind of stuff in there. But you leave that out and just on your desk, and what if someone breaks into your house? I'm like, oh, very good point, brother. That's why you're my big brother. And then it's like, well, what happens also in today's world? Everyone has a camera on their cell phone. They come into your house, they take pictures of everything, all these important documents that you have ready to go for that second person to come in to, take care of situations. And you may not even realize that they've taken pictures of everything. So when you come home from your trip, it looks like nothing, just everything is normal. So I've got to find a new place for my stuff. I can get them searched up, but then where do I keep them? Write that down. Okay. If you're going by car, something else that may be useful to have is a shovel, maybe jumper cables, extra water for your car, maybe an extra blanket. Whenever you go traveling through the desert, you should always have water and blanket anyway, and jumper cables in your car. So that would be something that's always there. A shovel. If you guys ever been down to the beach and gotten stuck, you realize how handy a shovel is. Other things that people may not necessarily have with them in a car, well, a good first aid kit, emergency blankets in case you need to stop for the evening, and some type of fire, like a flare or something like that, for signaling, or to start a fire starter. Yeah.
Plastic tarp.
A plastic tarp goes a long way. Yep. And if you hit a serious traffic jam, which is pretty common, learn the alternate routes. Really, like, get a Texas Gazetteer.
Is that maps?
Maps? Yeah.
You get some extra gasoline.
Extra gasoline, a jerry can, for sure, to hold that. And if you're going to carry extra gasoline, make sure you label it toxic, because someone else may come along after you have left that car, and they may see just a vessel, something to use to put water in. And this could be a couple months after you've left your car. And so hopefully if they open it up, they'll smell the gasoline, but who's to say? So label it and let people know what was in that container. Okay? If your car doesn't work, if your car runs out of gas and you need to keep walking, are you going to be able to do it? Are you guys going to be able to walk distances, like serious distances? All right? Okay. Carry on. Any questions? Any other ideas? So, shelter, tornado. I grew up in Virginia. We used to have tornadoes there quite a bit. They used to come through my neighborhood, but we had basements in Virginia. Here you don't necessarily have basements.
She grew up in Florida.
Ah, so did you have basements in Florida? I can't imagine.
They would use the bathroom as a form of protection.
The bathroom is a form of protection. That's what you would do here as well. Get into that one room of the house that has as least windows as possible and as much in the center of the house as possible. And then maybe try and throw something over top. You get into a bath shower and throw something over top of it. If it's an earthquake, we don't really have earthquakes too much here, but if it is an earthquake, stand in a door jamb. Okay? I remember when I was living on the West Coast, I lived in Oregon for quite a while, and I, once again, being in Virginia, didn't really have earthquakes, and this one earthquake was really big, and it shook me literally out of bed like 5:30 in the morning. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? And I just ran. Somehow I must have heard go to the door jamb, so that's where I went. And then I asked folks later, and they said, yeah, that's a good spot. Something about the structural integrity of the door jamb. I don't know. And then chemical. A chemical is also if there are toxic fumes out and about in the air, you're going to seal your windows up, and that's when you're going to go to a particular room that you've already chosen. Which I just want to say one thing about that. When you're going through and you're planning and you're prepping and you're trying to decide what you're going to be doing when you stay at home, what room in the house are you going to be in? If it's in the summer, are you going to be on the hot side of the house or on the cooler side of the house? All houses have a hot side and a cool side, depending on where the sun is. All right? So if it's in the winter time, what side of the house are you going to be in? Use the elements to your advantage as much as you can, rather than fighting those elements. Use them to your advantage. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes? No? Maybe so? Carrying on. So for fire, if you have a chimney, if you have a fireplace, make sure that it's clean and it's ready to go. If you are on the go and you have a tent, don't cook inside your tent. It's too fumy, and that tent material is super flammable. And the last thing you want is to burn down the only shelter with you in it, okay, that you've got. Now, for fire comes along to kind of that positive mental attitude, which is going to be one of your best friends as well. So a fire is going to not only give you a positive attitude, it's going to allow you to stay warm. It's going to allow you to purify your water. If you're using a fire to purify your water, how long, and you're boiling it, how long do you need to let that water boil? I'm going to stand here until I hear an answer. 3 minutes per gallon? Typically, if it were me, I would let it boil, a boiling boil for 7 minutes minimum. Sure, per gallon. Yeah, 7 minutes minimum. Are you going to have enough fuel source for that? All right. What are you going to use for your fuel source? How are you going to start your fire? Matches, my husband and I joke around all the time when it comes to bartering. If the currency goes down, then we joke around and we've stockpiled batteries and matches, because matches are going to be like gold, and batteries probably will be too. So water is going to be one of the more important things that you guys need to figure out. And you can, when you are storing water, does water have a shelf life? It does have a shelf life. If you are getting water that's in, like this big gallons of spring water, those big jugs you can get, that is probably going to be one of the longer lasting sources of water because it hasn't been tapped, as long as the seal hasn't been broken. It's in a good, sturdy, strong, solid plastic container. It has not been tapped into. If you keep it in a cool, shady place, it should last quite a while. Quite a while, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Bottled water, like little bottled water in the peat bottle, you know, like Aqua, Ozarka, and things like that. I would give that maybe, let's see, I'm going to give the big jug a 5-year shelf life. Just playing it safe. It very well may last longer, but I would give it 5 years. And then when I purchased it, I put the date on everything. All right, so I know and I remember. For the little bottles, 18 months maximum. So the name of the ball game with water is if you are buying water, recycle through it. Use that water, constantly keep replenishing your supply, water the plants, drink it, do whatever you can, just don't waste it. And keep the old at the front and the new at the back, just like they do on the store shelves. Okay? If you're going to be purifying, if you're going to be cleaning, if you're going to be filtering, then there are definitely different methods that you can use. You've got filters. A filter is going to take care of everything except for water viruses. Now, assuming that your water source hasn't been totally breached, hasn't been completely compromised, then something like this may be just fine. But if you're in a situation where the sewer systems are down, your water system is down, then you want to filter it. And then you also want to purify it. All right? You can purify it using something like this, which is a scary pen. It's using ultraviolet light. This is what all of our water municipalities use. They use bleach and they use ultraviolet light. You've got tablets. These are all for maybe when you're on the go. Put in that grab-and-go bag. All right? If you're at home, then you can go ahead and stockpile gallon jugs of bleach. Get a little eyedropper. Squeeze a couple drops of bleach in your water, and just enough so you can barely smell that chlorine. If you cannot smell that chlorine, add more bleach. Don't add too much because then you don't want to poison yourself. There is that fine line, but bleach is something that you want to have. You want to have the bleach, and then you want to have these guys on hand. Duct tape, tarps, rolls of plastic, okay? And just keep it all in one location. I have at home, I have all these little things just stashed all over the house. Like in my food pantry, I have this, which isn't everything, but it's something to get me started. And I have in my little crate, I have dehydrated foods, I have electrolyte tabs, I have beef jerky, I've got seaweed, you know, all kinds of lightweight nutritional items that are non-perishable. And Buddha cans, I had 2 cats, so I had to take those guys into consideration, so I have cat food. And then I also have that, which is going to have a little bit of first aid, it's going to have a fire source, a bandana, which is my favorite piece of gear, most versatile thing ever. Maybe an emergency blanket in there, you know, all kinds of little goodies. And then this is something that I will take with me depending on where I'm hiking. This is what I take when I go hiking. Along, I also have a first aid kit that accompanies that. And then this is something else. This is heavy, but this is going to be all inclusive in just this small little unit. And in this unit, first I have a Ziploc bag, which I can use to catch water if necessary. In case I forget something, a little survival book, and also gives me something to read to keep myself from getting bored, and I can also use it as tinder, maybe toilet paper in a pinch. Here's the second. Plastic bags. It's cool pass this around. That is this. Paper with a pencil, water vessel with water tablets to purify the water, more Ziploc bags, emergency blankets, rudimentary, basic at best, but it is something, first aid kit, bug spray, paracord, toilet paper, because I'm not using poison ivy, some type of food source, not that much, but it's something, a compass. All of this is my fire, be it matches, be it flint, be it lint from the dryer.
Hot balls and Vaseline on them.
Cotton balls with Vaseline, exactly. A signal mirror and steel wool. LED battery with aluminum foil on either end. And it heats up incredibly. Duct tape, or not duct tape, what is this? Dental floss? What would you use dental floss for, you guys? Fishing line, snare,
So you close up.
sew your clothes up, stitches, sew someone else up. Tie things together, to mend something. Sunscreen. I'd say sunscreen and bug spray are probably two things that people always forget. But the elements, I'm telling you, they're going to get you. Your environment. When you're thinking about the 7 priorities of survival, your shelter is number 1. You're thinking of all that. Giving you shade from the sunshine and relief from bugs. Extra batteries that I do not keep in my tiny little flashlight, but they're ready to go. Why might I not keep them in my flashlight? Because they're going to corrode. That's right. Pencil. Extra dental floss. Little knife. These guys. Safety pins. Playing cards. Boredom is probably going to be one of your kickers that people don't think about either. Multi-tool, and that's it. So this is something that I have just randomly stashed in my house where I know what it looks like, and I will probably grab that and go. The other thing that I'll grab will be that bag right there, which we'll go through in just a minute. Okay. Any questions on water before I move on?
It's a random question. I've got one of those minis there, and I may go periods of time where I don't use it. Does that does it start to grow things? Can those expire if they sit for a while?
It's a charcoal filter. So an old trick is to keep the charcoal filter in the freezer. And that will help inhibit any type of bacterial or any type of growth from the moisture. Let's say, you've used it and it isn't quite dry yet. Then it may freeze, but it'll thaw when you pull it out of the freezer. But it will help slow down that growth. Yeah. But in all reality, not until you really start feeling that resistance of the water pushing through the filter is when you need to replace the filter. Good question. I think it's upstairs. All right. Food, perishable versus non-perishable. The one thing I want you guys to walk away with food is plan to your diet. If you aren't Dehydrated food is loaded with sodium. Okay? So taste some of those. While we have the convenience and the luxury to go home carefree, this is the time to try some of those dehydrated foods. Not only for your grab and go pack, but also if you're into backpacking. Try some of these flavors out. See which ones you like, which ones you don't like. See just how loaded in sodium they are. See what kind of spices are needed or not needed before you start adding a lot of spices. Okay? But definitely keep that in mind. And if you have some type of comfort food, throw that in there. Keep in mind the element of perishability. I don't know, I just made that word up, I think. But, and if you have children and they don't like green peas, then don't get a whole can of Lucerne peas and make them eat those peas because you think it's good and rich in vitamin C or thiamine or something like that. Pineapple, canned peaches, all of those canned fruits are a really good source of vitamin C, and something that's sweet for the sweet tooth out there. Okay? Food can be tricky, but also make sure you rotate through. So, like it's getting time for me to go through my little stockpile and start eating some of that and then replenishing it with newer, further out expiration dates. Go through and check those expiration dates. Okay? And then communication. This is, I think, kind of more for like if you get lost or something like that in the wilderness. But it also could be something very beneficial. There's a handout that I provided for you guys, and that is a communication plan. And when it comes back to your prepping and preparing, when something happens, how are you going to communicate? Already have that in play. Texting it requires a low bandwidth, so probably texting is going to be a much better, more efficient, less battery eating, and your message is going to get through means of communication than actually making a phone call. How are you going to charge your cell phone? Let's assume that the cell phone towers are up. How are you going to charge? Remember when the towers went down a long time ago, and all of the cell phones, there was so much activity that everything was blocked. It could happen again. I don't see why not. I mean, what have we done to really make that situation better? There just are times when everything is so overloaded, the system is so overloaded.
I too lived out in Virginia for a while, a few years back, and when the earthquake hit a few years back, everybody used their cell phones, but the system was overloaded. I think the telecommunication system, was working, but I think everybody called at the same time,
Yeah.
so nobody could get through.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. So one of the things that we have an old, and we still have a landline, but we also have an old analog phone that we use. That in case something does go down, the cell phone towers, that will probably be a fairly reliable source of communication. But also just text.
Question. I'm just curious. I'm deaf, so I don't use an analog phone. But for a radio, cell phone tower, it breaks down services. What do I do?
How do you communicate right now?
How do you communicate?
How do you make phone calls?
Yeah, the interpreter's not always with me,
Okay.
so she can't use she doesn't make a call.
Do you text?
If the phone breaks down,
Phone system.
If the phone system is down entirely, do you have relatives, friends, neighbors nearby that know you're hearing impaired? Could they help?
yeah, some family, yeah, they can help, maybe. I'm just curious.
Yeah. something to think about and something to problem solve, because you're not going to be the only one in that situation. In fact, we all might as well be hearing impaired if all systems are down. Okay? So what I recommend is to come up with a communication plan. Have all of your contact phone numbers ready, written down and on you. If you have children, have them have that contact information. Let's say you're out at the grocery store and you need to get home. How are you going to communicate with the folks at home? Already have that in place. Have it in place that you meet back at home before you commence any other thing. Have a rendezvous point, all right? Check with your schools, check with your community centers, check with appropriate avenues to nursing homes, if you have relatives in nursing homes. What is their protocol for when communication goes down? If your kids are at school, how are you going to get them? Who's going to pick them up? If one parent is at work and one parent is out doing errands, who picks the kids up? And be consistent with that plan. Okay? You already have this written down and figured out, and practice it. Just like we practice fire drills, you guys. I kind of wish that there would be a fire drill in the middle of this class, because then we get to practice right here. What do? We all know we get up, we go out the door. There's probably a designated spot in the parking lot that we all are going to rendezvous. And then we wait, we get a head count. I would make sure that all of you guys are still with me. And then we would go on from there. It's the same thing, just a different environment, a different situation. Does that help? Kind of.
Somewhat. But it's only me and don't have any family outside of
Families out of the state.
out of state. All her family out of state. It's just her and her kid.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
So your child would be a good resource to help, and neighbors. Community, if there is, and that's where okay.
I'm the only one that can calm my kids down. He's got ADHD.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions on communication? Look through the handout. It's a very basic handout, but it does start to get you to think about something else that you may want to do on your cell phone. If you have the very beginning of your cell phone, ICE in case of emergency. Some of you guys may already have that on your cell phones. Others may not. Very valuable in case you're in a car accident, a search and rescue, or an ambulance person picks up your cell phone and they scroll through. The first contact they're going to look for is ICE. So you have ICE, the name of the contact, and their phone number in case of emergency. Okay? First aid is invaluable, you guys. Once again, the more you know, the less you fear, and the more you know about first aid, even if it's just basic first aid, it's invaluable knowledge to have in your tool belt. CPR, the fire departments put on a really good CPR class, either through Travis County, through Williamson County, through the Red Cross, CPR, Wilderness First Aid. We offer, November is going to be the next time that we are offering a first aid class.
Is there any charges for that class?
For the Wilderness First Aid,
Yes.
$250 for the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. CPR, I believe, is $25. for the environment, when you are preparing for the environment, you don't have to have a lot of clothing, but the clothing that you do have is going to be crucial in your choices. You want to have a base layer to keep yourself warm. You want to have an insulating layer to keep yourself warm as well. You want to stay away from cotton, and you want to have some type of external waterproof, windproof layer. And a good pair of boots, for sure, with good socks and blister protection. Yeah, a good pair of boots, and then also, if you can, a second lighter weight pair of shoes to let your feet air. Okay. A hat, bandana, here are those shoes. Liners. With the advent of the technology of the socks these days, you guys, liners is a little bit old school, although you can still use it. In the past, you would have that old rag wool type of sock, and it would rub blisters. So you would use a liner that would take the brunt of the rubbing on the shoe away from your foot in that rag wool sock. But since socks have gotten so much more sophisticated nowadays, a good pair of smart wool socks is about all you need. All right. Bubble wrap, I haven't heard that before. Newspapers, definitely I've heard that. It's true. It would be like an air insulation. You still would need some type of external layer to keep it in. That could run on. Yeah. Yeah. It's small. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Time check. Navigation. So you guys now getting into, if you were making a grab and go bag, different items that you would want to take with you. Definitely navigation, sun protection, insulation, illumination, first aid, fire repair, nutrition, hydration, emergency shelter, extras. All of this is just like the core. And then from there, you would continue to build. Okay? So navigation, sun protection, insulation, which is going to be your bubble wrap, first aid, illumination, fire, water and food, emergency shelters, and communication. Okay, so now what I want us to do is I'm going to go through the bag that I brought. You guys can see stuff that I have in that particular bag. It's heavy, and it doesn't have food, it doesn't have water. All right? So when you are thinking of things to take, you can apply this to all different kinds of things. I go in depth a lot about this in my backpacking classes, but you can apply it to this situation as well. So when you're thinking of systems and what to put in a grab and go, you want some type of shelter, which is going to incorporate, some type of tent, and then it's also going to incorporate a sleeping bag. Here you are, a little smile on your face, and then also some type of sleeping pad to to go underneath you. Okay? That's your shelter system. All right? Then the next you want to think about maybe could be a kitchen. Your kitchen is also going to include food, fuel, water, which how are you going to clean it? Maybe a stove, pots, pans, utensils. All of those are like luxury items in this situation. But if you have it small and contained, then you can include that in your grab and go. All right? So shelter, kitchen, what else may you have? Clothing. And footwear. Miscellaneous, first aid kit, binoculars, books, fire starters, all of that kind of stuff. Okay? So going through, thinking and keeping those systems in mind. 2 books, well, really 3, that I usually keep in here. Even though I'm pretty good at first aid, there's still things that I can't remember, or that in a panic I may forget. And so to pull out a first aid book that calmly walks you through everything, it's worth its weight in gold. Okay? So, first aid book. And then 2 of my favorite books, both from Cody Lundeen. One is The Art of Keeping Your Ass Alive. This is more of a wilderness situation. And then When All Hell Breaks Loose. He goes over a lot of really good information in here that I haven't touched on yet. Like, if you're staying at home, how do you handle sanitation? Where are you going to go to the bathroom if the water system isn't working? In the event that you have to deal with corpses, how are you going to handle dead bodies? What do you do in that situation? You know? How are you going to handle garbage? All of those you have to, in reality, it's not very pretty, but it's stuff you have to think about. Okay? So those 2 books I always keep in here. And I want you to think about when we're going through if I have forgotten anything. All right? So, solar panel, solar charger. Let's see, for my shelter, I don't think I have anything. I don't have a tent. I do have my sleeping pads. And then I have these guys, which are like emergency blankets sewn on 3 sides. So I don't have to worry about wrapping myself like a burrito. And then on a windy day, that can get really tiresome to keep that burrito shut. And what is that called? It's just like an emergency bivy. Baby sack. And then this is a liner. Typically, this would be used to add heat to an already existing sleeping bag, but you can use this in conjunction with that. That's a pretty small little sleep unit. Okay, it's going to keep you warm. Okay. A chair. For a sleeping unit, my sleep shelter system, that's it. And here, I do have just miscellaneous cord and a couple compasses. So maybe I could rig something up with the cord. I don't know. Maybe I have my magnesium fire starter. I've left all the paper on for a reason, in case I need to use it as tinder. Okay? And then in here, fire starter, more matches, little candles. Okay. Duct tape. Always good to have duct tape. Fire tinder, laundry lint. I just keep this from the dryer. Okay. Then for water, purified water, I can either boil it. I have tablets. One container to hold water, second container to hold water. Wow. Here's something. I'm going to add that to my shelter. What's this? I'm looking for this thing. My little monocle. It's been a while since I could see what I have. Kind of fun. All right, so in here I have a monocle, and I have just extra random cord. So for water, you guys, that looks like it. Oh, here we go. There. Okay. First aid, rudimentary, but it has everything in here that I would need for first aid. We're on to our miscellaneous. Binoculars, odor-proof sacks. What may I use these for? Food. Yeah. And sanitation. You bet. Animals are going to be an issue. You know, they're there now. Why would they not be there after something happens? Put things in odor-proof bags. Hang your food still like you always would. You know, nothing has changed in that respect. The only thing that's changed is a slight variation on the environment. Okay? But there still are going to be all those things that we normally would take into consideration. More duct tape, my best friend. Random sacks. Extra little backpack with a whistle. In case we need to go do a run, a water run or something like that. Or string. String. Or knife. Bowl. Looks like no utensils. Hand sanitizer. Bug spray. And sunscreen. Toilet paper. A plethora of Ziploc bags. Here. Random cords. Don't ask me why. That's extra weight. That goes. And sunglasses. Would this be enough for me to get by? Am I missing anything? Exactly. Where's the signal mirror? What would I use to signal with? With everything that's here, I've got the aluminum foil that I can use to signal with. There may be something reflective in here, but I don't have the actual signal mirror.
Binoculars, lift off the lens.
I can use the binoculars. Yeah. I think I do have a compass in here that's got a mirror on it. So I could use that. As far as my shelter, in my Do I have a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag that's going to keep me warm? It's not the ideal, but it would work. Okay. As far as my kitchen goes, do I have any kind of little stove? No. What would I use? I would just have to start a fire. Yeah. What if it's really dry? What if there's a fire ban? If you're starving, who cares? You have 3 weeks. 3 weeks before you really start starving. You could dig a hole, a fire pit, and put rocks around it. You know? Okay? What else am I missing? Where's my clothing? Where's my extra? Where are those layers? Is this sufficient then? Not quite. Almost there. Almost there. But not quite. It's certainly a good start. Okay. All right, so all of this is stuff that I've thrown out at you. Are you going to stay in place or are you going to evacuate? Decide what you're going to do and have a plan for all situations. If you're going to stay in place, then you need to pick out particular rooms that you're going to congregate in. If you're staying in place, do you want to really make your presence known at your house? Or do you want to kind of keep and maintain a low profile? All right. If you have stockpiled a lot of things, do you necessarily want to let everyone know that you're ready to go?
You kind of need to look like everybody else. I'm from New York, and my cousin lives in Jersey, so during Hurricane Sandy,
Yeah.
she said she was looking for gas and she couldn't find it. Her house had power. She walked to a store near her house, and the little man came up to her and asked her if she had power. She didn't say anything for a minute. He said, "You must have power. You look too fresh and too clean." So it's important to be able to look like the people around you. That's why I'm like, say there was some other people that could have followed you home and you went back home and broke into your house.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent point. So really, just once again, it's that adaptability. Yeah, you may be able to wash yourself and have clean water to drink, but that's a sure giveaway for other folks that may not have those resources. Okay? They do have composting toilets you can use. Yeah. And you can make your own composting toilet. And then as far as when it comes to toilets, you can also take one of those garbage bags and you can even, let's say, even though the water's out, you can line your toilet with one of those garbage bags. And then you just do your business in the garbage bag. And then when it gets full, not too heavy because you don't want it to break on you when you're carrying it outside. Then you really got a mess because you have no water to clean it up. You would then bundle it up, and you've already designated a particular spot in your yard where you're going to put all of that waste. Okay. A 5-gallon bucket works for that as well. But the trick is knowing how to dispose of that waste properly. And a little trick that I have learned along the way is when you're finding that location of where to bury your waste, be it poop or just trash in general, put yourself into the mind, if a raindrop had a mind, put yourself into the physics of how a raindrop passes along the surface of the ground and how it sinks down into the ground. And you want to necessarily have your waste and your trash uphill when you're living downhill. Probably not. Because that means when it rains, all of that, think like the raindrop, is going to come to where you are. Once again, not a good situation. I like the idea of blending in with everybody. And also making your house not look really cool. let the weeds grow. And if you have electricity, if you have candles, at nighttime you may not necessarily want to use your electricity. You may not want to use your lights. Don't let people know that you are good to go. Okay? One more time? Yeah. Use plastic or wood or something over your.
Have blackout curtains, when as hot as it is around here. Most people have them anyway.
Exactly. And that also comes up with a good point, is in this environment, in this Texas world, think of things that are already normal for us. So let's say you want to start building up a water reservoir. Go get a huge thing, get maybe like a little kiddie swimming pool or something that may look like a bird bath or a bird pump or something like that. And then every once in a while, use it so that people have seen you use this water source as recreational rather than drinking water. Okay? And then definitely make sure you get that communication plan, really figure it out. I think that is just a huge stressor, and if you already have that figured out, you will just be that much more ahead of the game of everyone else. Have that rendezvous point, know who's going there, wait for everybody, have a contingency plan if you're meeting at home, if you're meeting at a community center, if you're meeting in the neighborhood, out in the neighborhood, where is it? Let everybody know that you want to know that information. Okay? And then animals, don't forget those guys. Cat food, dog food, water for your animals, first aid for your animals. Your animals are going to be just as stressed out as you are. Have your important documents ready, ICE in case of emergency, and CERT. CERT, you guys really check that out. It is really cool, and it just goes through all of this so much more in depth. It covers a lot more information than what I'm presenting to you right now. And once again, just the more knowledge you have, the better prepared you are. And then develop your skill sets. Wilderness first aid, self-defense, exercise, keep yourself in shape. Are you able to walk 100 miles? May not seem like that much. Think of those people fleeing Syria and different places in the Middle East. Those people have walked thousands of miles. Migration, human migration, has been happening since the beginning of time. We are not as fit as we once were for that human migration. But if you stay on top of it, then you've got a really good chance. Okay? And this one I just saw recently. Familiarize yourself with small livestock, chickens and goats. You guys, chickens are so hip right now. Oh my gosh. It would be so easy to go ahead and get a chicken coop or get some goats. It's just like everyone else in the neighborhood. You will already know how the system works. You know what they need. You know what it takes to grow chickens and to grow goats. Your own personal lawnmower. And then, if you aren't into gardening, maybe just do it simple, foot by foot, Thomas Jefferson type of garden where you can grow vegetables in just a tiny little container. My grandfather was an avid gardener. He was alive during the World War II time frame, and they had back then what were called victory gardens. I don't know if you guys have heard of these or not. They were huge back then because of the war. Everything was being funneled overseas, and there was a huge push for. There was a real strong sense of camaraderie and community back in that time frame, and there is still now, but it was just a different form, I think. In Victory Gardens, he fed his family, he fed his neighbors. Okay, which neighbors is another thing which I didn't put on here, but get to know who your neighbors are. Might as well. Might as well know if they're nice or if they're going to be so. And then what I want you guys to do after you've come up with your plans and then you've learned how to prepare in your cupboard, how long can you live on everything that's in your cupboard? Let's say you have to stay at home for the next week. Could you do it with what you have? Can you unplug? This just goes for everything. You know, backpacking, disasters. What would you do in a situation where you didn't have access to all of the electronics?
She just wanted to ask for clarity, but you just answered her question.
Okay. And then where would you go? Where can you go? Do you necessarily want to go to an area where there are a lot of people? You know, if there's like a community center. Some people like to be around people. Other people like to be by themselves. Figure that out. A lot of questions I'm making you guys try and think about. I'm not giving you a lot of answers. I'm hopefully giving you some answers. But really what I want you guys to get away from this are the questions to start asking yourself, the realities, to start thinking about what are you going to do in this situation, in that situation. Water, shelter, staying at home, how are you going to prepare for that? Evacuating, how are you going to prepare for that? Communicating, how are you going to communicate all of this? How are you going to get your family back together before you proceed to the next situation? All of these you've really got to figure out. And we all have our own ways of answering these questions. That's why I'm not really giving you a lot of concrete answers. I mean, this is one answer that I give you. It's not a complete answer, though, because A, it's incomplete with everything that should be in here, and B, what works for me may not necessarily work for you guys, and vice versa. But there are some things that are universal, and that is going to be a positive mental attitude. It's going to be able to provide shelter, fire. How are you going to handle water? What do you do in case of a viral outbreak? Electricity goes down. Cell phone towers are down. Okay. Any questions? All right. Resources. This one up top, ready.gov, is really awesome. They give you a lot of good checklists for all different kinds of things. And then CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and then FEMA. Wilco is for Williamson County. Cedar Park, Texas is a really awesome site. Round Rock, Texas, your CERT. And when you're doing your search, these are all government entities. And there are a lot of other resources out there other than just the government, you guys. Everyone has their own way of approaching other entities, other ways to prepare. So when you're doing your Google searches, search for emergency management preparedness or emergency preparedness, disaster preparedness. Those are the keywords that you want to Google search. You're going to get all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. Okay. And this is what I'm going to end on. Positive mental attitude. Can't stress how important that is. Keeping that stress level down. Plan, prepare, practice.